Hello, Amy. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today. I'm super excited to have you here. And I think you have an incredible story and one that should be told. So I'm going to jump right into asking questions. And I know when I met you, I was super fascinated by your background. So you have a very interesting journey because, if I remember correctly, you came from the VC side of the business. I love your story of how and why you decided to open your own company, Madison Reed. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so first of all, Shelley, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this. Yeah, so my journey is one of three-time entrepreneur, then venture capitalist, then entrepreneur. And people ask me all the time, why is that? And I've come to understand that I really like operating. It's not that I don't like investing, but I really enjoy operating because I like leading and I like creating the possibility that other human beings have sort of life changing experiences through the companies that somebody like me hopefully builds successfully. So, mine is a story of being a investment banker. And as I say, that was not good for all those involved. And then deciding to, be an entrepreneur and start my own company, which I did and sold it to a public company and then went and started, helped. I was a senior person at this little company at the time called E-Trade, which turned into a much bigger company. And I was there in the rise and the not so good moments of, 2000 and 2000 and lived through that. And then I had my career stumble, as I call it, which everybody, has at least one of those. And in retrospect, it's a great thing where I was hired to take over a founder led organization that had been in business a long time. And, I thought that I was being very successful, but ended up getting fired in a hotel lobby, not knowing that I was going to get fired in a hotel lobby by the founder who decided that they wanted to come back and run the company differently, even though they had been gone. So I kind of learned something there. And then I became a venture capitalist because I, had an operating background. And I think my partners at Mavron saw that. And so I opened the Bay Area office of Mavron, where it's a Seattle based firm. One of the founding partners is Howard Schultz. So I had the good fortune of working in a consumer focused early stage venture fund and did that for 6 years and loved it, but kind of kept having this experience that I'd go to board meetings and I was wishing I was the CEO rather than the VC. And so I just decided as the firm was, going to raise a new fund that it would make more sense for me to decide to become an entrepreneur again. And that was the genesis of how I came up with this crazy Madison Reed idea.
I just love it. I think that's a fantastic journey. So today's workforce has really changed drastically, especially in the last few years. Priorities have changed with workers. Work life balance has become certainly more important. And also, employees really want to be part of that bigger picture of things. How do you empower and support your team members to excel in today's challenging environment?
Yeah, I think that the first thing I'd say is that one of the greatest attributes I think a leader needs to have is empathy. And the reason that I say that is that I think if the pandemic taught us one thing, it taught us that, curveballs happen in big magnitudes and that understanding people's life holistically. Like we talk about this at Madison Reed all the time that we want to I want everyone to bring their full selves to work, right? So in order for full selves to work to happen, you have to accept all the things that a full self has, including, home life, anxiety, health, all those things, mental health, physical health, and aspirations that people have. And what is the relationship that people have to work that might be different than the relationship people generationally in my generation have to work, right? So for us, it was a watershed moment in the pandemic. We had always been a company that was really focused on our cultural values. I tell the story that the values existed the fourth day into the company, but the hair color in a tube didn't, because we just knew that we wanted to set forth who we were and who we are, and how that created a roadmap, as I call it, to every decision we would make and all the hires we would make. So we tend to, in our case, recruit people that are purpose driven, mission driven. They believe as much as the efficacy is the product, as how we do the work we do and what we do culturally, and how do we treat each other, and what do we want the experience to be around personal growth, financial growth, and professional growth. So as the pandemic happened, all of a sudden this notion of going to an office and doing things that were more traditional, just, it was just thrown upside down. And at the same time, our business doubled in 6 months. So we had
Wow.
this dilemma, right? We had a dilemma of good fortune in our company while there was massive life anxiety happening for our workforce, right? So we had to hold both things at once. And I think it taught us a lesson that if you talk about bringing your holistic self to work, you have to understand that everybody has different experiences. And so we did a lot of things, right? And I talk about this, and I think, and there are things we continue to do. We started offering mental health benefits,
That's
mental
great.
health care, um, and sort of partnering with a company that did that anonymously online for people who wanted therapy. We started to be more conscious about, times of meetings, days of meetings, realizing that if you had little kids at home, it just wasn't going to work that same way. And so we addressed the way the business sort of operated, rather than saying to people, it's just the way it is, make it work, right? We listened and we did some things. We're still 100%. I
Wow.
think there's a moment now that we're thinking through, because we've had some good fortune of the culture not, I mean, of course, culture is harder when you don't see each other, but we have a lot of rituals in the company that create, for instance, I have lunch with the company every Wednesday at 12:15, no matter where I am in the world.
I
And
love that.
and I have coffee with Amy every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And it's the lunch is mandatory. We talk about what's happening in the company. We give shout outs to people. We welcome new people. We say goodbye to people that are leaving. And on Fridays, it's just a life question that I pose. It has nothing to do with work. And it's all about, can we find ways to get to know each other on a deeper level? So I think that there's no simple answer to the question about, how do you perfectly adjust your culture to a new workforce. I think the first step is recognizing there is a new workforce, and recognizing what it is in your culture you need that fits for recruiting people and retaining people and promoting people and career developing people. Many people in our company have coaches that we pay for, because we've also learned that, someone's development is not only about what the organization can do, but there's something somebody needs to talk about that are outside the realm of what's happening at work, right? We create listening circles. Our, management team has a coach that we work with in in-person sessions that are about conflict resolution, building trust in the circle. So how do we say hard things to each other and still get our business done? So I guess my, long answer that is maybe complexity into simplicity is, you have to invest in people as human beings fully. And sometimes that requires understanding things that may be different from how you worked, or, I had never worked in a remote environment before. I was going into an office kind of person. And so I've had to adjust my own level of how I expect things. Yet we changed our routines and the things that we did that created what I would consider to be the container that keeps the culture alive. And I think that consciousness raising is something that leaders have to understand. Lots of businesses are saying now you must come back, right? Like that is the current piece of news. And I think everybody needs to understand their workforce, their culture, what works for them. And there's not one simple answer. Being a leader means that you have to sometimes make decisions that are hard, a lot of times, every day. And yet, can you do it with empathy and compassion?
Wow, yeah, it's definitely not, as you said, it's not a simple answer, and it's even more difficult to execute such a very thought out and engaging employee culture in the company. So I'm wondering, can you share with us maybe an example of a difficult decision you had to make and the thought process behind it?
Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, we had 12 stores. We had a very vibrant, we only had 12 stores in March of 2020. We have 87 now. Okay.
I know, I'm surprised.
And yeah. But we had, team members that worked in the stores. And so what was the difficult decision? Like, our online business was going crazy. Our relationship with Alta was, on fire because, as you remember, every woman in the world now needed to color their hair at home. And we did gain, sort of outpaced competition in market share because everyone had heard about the company. But now salon goers were needed to do something, and we were very fortunate and blessed that they came to us. But we had people that we didn't know how long stores would be closed. It was expensive to keep them, and we kept them. And we most of these people were certified licensed colorists. And so the thought process was, what was in the ethos of the company first? Was could I look in the mirror at night and really feel like, well, that was just about money, sorry? Or could I look in the mirror at night and think these people have families, their anxiety, they're afraid to get sick. What does this mean for their livelihood? Right? Is that in the mission and purpose? And oh, did I have another role that was really valuable? And so we shifted all of them in a 3-day period from working in stores to teaching them how to take customer service calls because our call center was always certified licensed colorist because we give advice and
Of
color
course.
match. And so I said, well, listen, there's a people and we're under like a waterfall of customer service inbound because our business was exploding. Could we teach these people? So here's what we did. We sure, was it the most economical decision for the company? Probably not. But was it a decision that set in motion that we are who we say we are? We effectively bought a whole bunch of Google Chromebooks, sent them we gave people a choice. We said, here's what your role could be, or you could decide to pause your employment, and as soon as stores open, we'll rehire you. The vast majority of people took the opportunity to join. Many of them learned technology skills we bought headsets, Google Chromebooks. I think we wiped that out in the Bay Area, sent it to everybody. And then I think in a 3-day period, people over a weekend were trained how to use the Chromebook, how to answer the phone, how to get back on chat. And we just supercharged that. And when stores reopened, many people went back to stores. A handful of people are still in our call center because they liked it better and learned technology skills. But my point was hard decision, right? Like not obvious, yet one that I feel really good about.
Wow, I can't believe you trained 100 people in 3 days. That's unbelievable. Kudos to you
Yeah.
and your team for that.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. I think I think if you believe in team first, then every decision goes through that first lens.
So, Amy, let's switch gears here and talk a little bit about mentoring. Have you had any mentors who really influenced you, your leadership journey? I'd love to hear who has really made an impact on you.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few. I think early in my career, there were some when I was a banker, there were some senior women that had fought their way through the jungle to get to be senior women. And they were very influential in helping me think through career pathing and how to deal in a finance world that primarily was not women dominated. I had a male mentor at the bank I was at who actually, helped me a lot navigate and effectively helped me think through the fact that maybe you want to be a entrepreneur rather than work in a large company. And I'd say that in addition, believe it or not, some of my investors that are on my board have been mentors. They've been people that
Oh,
I've been
interesting.
able to confide in, have helped me think through things that are not just in the boardroom, but I'm a full disclosure person. And so, helping, how do I say, like, thinking out loud, talking out loud, thinking while I'm talking is kind of how I process. And then last but not least, I have a life coach now. And that person has been very important in my own development of understanding where my strengths are, where my blind spots are, what are the things that trigger me, how do I deal with stress, how do I show up for other people differently. And it's been incredible for me. It's been going on for about 18 months, and I feel like my life is very different since I've engaged with a life coach.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, I know you definitely pay it forward. You've come to speak to my class at Fashion Institute of Technology. I know you're very fond of helping students. What other things are you doing in terms of your mentoring others? Because I know there's a lot of women that could really benefit from all the things that you do and your leadership.
Yeah. So, the first thing is that, you know, I'm involved with both of my alma maters, University of Connecticut as an undergrad student, and I'm on the foundation board there and help start a student-led venture fund. So that's been wonderful, and which has been, like an incredible experience to teach people how to teach young people, and many of them women, what it's like to invest early in their careers, and that's just been great. I am involved at Wharton and teach classes there. And often, all the time after these classes, there are a line of women that are asking for help. And I have a process, which is, I give you my email address, email me your issue. I can't spend a ton of time on the phone because I just don't have access. But if you email me, I'm going to get you answers to those things. And I have lots of women that have continued in their careers and just check in with me about those things that are important to them. I teach a class at Stanford out here at the GSB,
Wow.
and that's been super helpful for me because every time it's a case about Madison Reed that happens, I learn something, and there's always women coming after that as well to help. And then last but not least, I'm a part-time venture capitalist still, and so I both mentor some of the women that are at the VC firm and certainly have played a role in angel investing and getting involved in women early in their careers, later in their careers. So I have a full plate.
You too.
You know, I mean, it sounds bizarre. Sometimes I think to myself, like, oh, you should do more. It's like an affliction. But people, women helped me early in my career. And I feel like we stand on each other's shoulders. And it's an important factor to be somebody that can give you guidance and give back. And it's an important factor to seek that out on the other side, right? Don't be afraid to
Yeah,
ask.
absolutely. If you do, what is probably one of the most valuable lessons you've ever learned that you'd like to share with aspiring female leaders?
There's two things, if I can note them, I'll make them quicker. One, I've struggled my whole career with doubting my gut. And I'm a person that, I was trained at Wharton and analytics, head things, spreadsheets, head things, decision trees, right? Exactly. And as a business person and venture capitalist, like, look at the data. The data will tell you everything, right? So I have that tendency, and yet my gut is amazingly speaks to me all day long. So the first thing is that I've learned that following your gut is just absolutely essential as an entrepreneur. The great companies are the things that come out of, and I want to use this word carefully. They come out of sort of crazy, right? Like, we're kind of off a little bit. We kind of see things that other people can't see, which is why we start companies and we make bets of seeing around the corner before we get around the corner. Everybody else gets around a corner, and that's why the business can be successful. So that's one. Trust your gut. You're not great. It speaks to you and it's real. And then I think the second thing that I want to say to people is, to women in particular, don't be afraid to ask, and you're worth it.
Love that.
Because as moms, as professionals, as partners, as probably aging parents, like there's certain age group I'm in, my parents aging, we are what I call at a stage in our life called the sandwich generation. We're right in the middle of parents aging and our obligations and our children. And we come very low in our own sort of hierarchy of taking care of ourselves, right? It's just the way women are wired. And that's the roles we've absorbed. And for many of us have enjoyed enormously, right?
Yeah.
So take care of yourself, but ask, because the first place you start is, do I deserve success? Here's what I've learned. Most of us are on the surface, Shelley, it appears that we're scared to fail. And I have learned from my own journey is that I'm more scared in some ways to succeed than I am to fail. Failing is what we're wired to do, right? That's what we're prepared to do. Who prepares us to think enough of ourselves to succeed? And I think that's and I think the universe goes, when you get your head right, that happens, right? So that's what I urge people to do. Believe in yourself. You deserve it.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to end with a couple rapid fire questions. So I'm just going to ask you a quick question and you just bang, give me an answer. Okay, what one piece of advice would you give to female leaders that are currently working?
Go for your dreams.
Love it. What 3 tips would you give students or emerging leaders?
You don't have to be good at everything that school teaches you that you should be. You know where your genius is, and construct a happy life.
And my last one is, what's your legacy? What do you want to leave behind for that next generation?
I want people to understand that love is the most powerful human emotion. And it has a place in work, and it has a place in all parts of your life. And if you love, good things happen.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, one last question. This is the last one.
Sure.
This is a fun one too. It can be related to work or not related to work.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? What's your secret power?
Like following my gut, which has never been wrong.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate your time. I recognize how busy you are. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Shelley. I cherish our friendship, and I thank you for the interest in me and Madison Reed.